Imagine living in an era where glamour hid secrets. Strange secrets, muffled under layers of fabric. Tonight, you're going to drift off to sleep knowing the intimate habits, and often the uncomfortable ones, of Victorian women, a society of scented silences, talcs, and hidden cloths. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and come with me. Undergarments in the Victorian era were quite different from what we wear today. Victorian women didn't wear panties as we know them. Instead, they wore drawers, also called pantalettes or pantaloons. These were lightweight fabric garments, often reaching the knees, and most interestingly, they were open between the legs. This design allowed women to urinate or defecate without removing their clothing. They simply had to lift their skirts and position themselves over a chamber pot or a latrine. It was practical, certainly, but a bit strange, especially in emergencies. Toilet paper and corncobs. Toilet paper, as we know it, only emerged at the end of the 19th century. Early versions were often perfumed and contained chemical disinfectants. However, this attempt at cleanliness quickly led to wounds and burns on the genitals due to the harsh additives. Before its widespread availability, Victorian women resorted to other methods. They used old newspapers, scraps of cloth, or even dried corncobs. Yes, corncobs. These were dry, rough, and, surprisingly, reusable. Menstruation in the Victorian era. During menstruation, Victorian women would fold pieces of linen cloth and secure them with improvised belts or sashes. These homemade pads were then washed in hot water and reused. There were no disposable sanitary products, no privacy surrounding the matter, as it was a fact of life that women simply dealt with, and no real opportunity for rest or ease during this often uncomfortable time. Baths and damp cloths. Full baths were a rarity for most Victorian women. Instead, the majority would wash themselves with a damp cloth. This silent ritual involved a basin of water, a cloth, and a quiet moment by the bedside. They'd focus on the face, armpits, and groin, nothing more. While the wealthiest might have owned porcelain bathtubs, the true sign of luxury was often a small heated foot bath before bed. Hair and ammonia. Long hair was a potent symbol of femininity in the Victorian era. However, it was never worn loose in public. A woman's hair was only let down in front of her husband, and exclusively during intimate moments. Washing hair was a monthly, sometimes bi-weekly chore. They used soap, or in some cases even ammonia. The scalp would burn, but appearances had to be maintained at all costs. Scent and rose stems. There was no deodorant in the Victorian era. Instead, women relied on perfumed talcum powders, applied under the arms and between the legs. Poorer women would often use dry cloths in their armpits to prevent sweat from staining their dresses, which were almost never washed. Dresses were instead brushed, aired out, and only spot cleaned with damp cloths where stained. The dirt, it seems, was kept well hidden. Teeth and salt. And what about teeth? Well, there was no toothpaste as we know it. At the beginning of the 19th century, women cleaned their teeth by rubbing salt on them with their fingers. Dentists, at that time, primarily served one purpose: extractions. While toothbrushes would eventually emerge, they wouldn't become widely popular until much later. The Victorian era was made of silences, of secrets between fabrics, of smells muffled by talcum powder, of forgotten baths, of salty mouths, and hairstyles never let down. Maybe, today, everything seems strange, but back then, it was normal. Sleep now with this curious certainty that elegance doesn't always smell so good. Good night. And until the next story, to sleep or to never forget.